Well, my journey was very different, very, very different from people nowadays, because when I came over, there was no internet. So the only way we could look for property was in magazines, and by the time we got here, the properties were long gone. And it was really difficult, really, really difficult. Whereas nowadays, I mean, a lot of buyers are more informed than we are, because if you're dreaming, and it is a dream, you know, it's a wonderful dream for most people, about coming to France, you are passionate about it, you are looking on the internet, you know, you have alerts for every new property. Whereas when we came over, literally we ended up having to rent for a year, because otherwise we wouldn't have found anything. And it was a learning curve. Things were much slower, whereas now people, they want to move, they've made the decision, and they can, if they want to, they can go online, they can look around the town. I mean, how amazing is that? You can go on Google, you can look around, you can see if there are any shops, you can, and most of it's quite up to date. And because of social media, you can speak to people who've just done this, who are thinking about doing it. So the world is your oyster now. I mean, it is such a different journey. But, you know, the doubts, the worries are exactly the same. They're exactly the same, and I help people. So my children were 5 and 9 when I came here, and I now have a grandson of 12 born here. But the people I help, even today, are exactly the same. You know, I helped somebody the other day with children of 4 and 8, and I go to the school, I help introduce them to the teachers. I kind of stay in touch, you know, always. They're sort of my, you know, my little part of my little family, my little Immobilier family. Gosh, it was an adventure. I mean, honestly, we were naive. Everyone's naive. It's an adventure. You're young. You don't think really about the negatives. I spoke French, which was good. I did A-level French. My husband didn't speak any French. We were actors, so he had been in Starlight Express and Joseph in the West End for 10 years. He was very tired. I did voiceovers. So we decided in our innocence that he would stop working, we would sell up in England, we'd come to France, and I would commute. And that's what we did. I stayed for a month, got the children settled in school. That was really difficult, and I will never ever brush over that with anybody. It is difficult. It's worth it. It's very, very distressing to see your child upset, and they do get upset because age 5 they don't understand why people don't understand them and why they don't understand their friends. But suddenly one day it's like magic. I mean, honestly, one day they're fluent, and they've got friends, and they're rabbiting away at home, and you think, thank you, because it really is worrying, but it's part of the journey. And if you're prepared for it, you won't get too upset by it. You'll know it's a means to an end. You know, now I can say 30 years later, I have 2 wonderful children. They're adults, they're 35 and 39, and they are the reason we came to France. It wasn't because property was cheaper, it wasn't because we were going to work any less, it's because we wanted our children to have an old-fashioned upbringing. And yes, you know, there are drugs, I suppose, somewhere. You know, France is not, it's not a haven where nothing bad happens, but it's slower. And children have time to play outside. They're not always stuck to screens, although with my grandson, it is a bit more difficult nowadays because they grow up with screens, you know. But it was such a lovely time, and my children don't think that because you've got expensive trainers you're any better than anyone else. You know, I had a Porsche in England. Here I drive any old car, I don't really care. And they're the same. They treat people as they would like to be treated. And my son now lives in England. He's a musician, a well-known jazz musician, and my daughter is a photographer in Nantes. And the best thing about it is they're both completely bilingual, and that is something you can't buy. You can't pay someone to teach your child to be bilingual. They're bilingual. Also, they've had a quality of life that doesn't exist. And when I talk to my clients, I say, you know, buying in France is not an investment. If you sell again, if you get your money back, well done, you know, that's good. But what you are buying is something that is totally and completely priceless. You are buying a quality of life that doesn't exist in the UK, well, as far as I know anyway. And it's such a great way of living. It's slow. You talk to people to listen to them. There's no keeping up with the Joneses. A lot of my neighbours, for instance, have still got the same car they bought new 25 years ago, and yet they're much richer than I am. But why buy a new car? The old one works, you know. That's how it is. Friendship, families, neighbours matter here. They really do matter more than they used to in the UK, and probably they do now. I don't know. You know, 30 years later, I'm a bit of a foreigner in the UK. You know, the anxieties appear later, because in the beginning you're very excited and you imagine your life, and it's picture postcard, you know. I mean, it is picture postcard, you've just seen, but it's the anxieties. You think, am I going to be able to be understood? My husband didn't speak French. Now he speaks absolutely fluent, appalling French. He uses lots of swear words. Why do we learn swear words first? I don't know. And I was worried that I would end up having to do everything. I was also worried about the children. And I knew that my daughter, who was the eldest, would look after my son. But I didn't really feel that that was her place, you know. In fact, she did, and she still does, really. And but there's also the system. You hear about the paperwork, and the paperwork is complex. But you know, it's complex for French people. I learned a lot of things, like the mayor's secretary is your best friend. You knock on the door, she's there to help you. She helps all the French people, and she will help you. And that one of the biggest things is, you're frightened of speaking French, whether you speak good French like I do or not at all like my husband, but you need to be understood. So my advice is, go for it. Make mistakes, try, because then they will speak to you in English. Most French people have learnt English. They're just a bit nervous, you know, about speaking it. And treat your neighbours you know, as though they're part of your family, really, because then you will be part of their family. My main anxieties were, you know, how to get into the tax system, all the bureaucracy. Looking for the house was difficult, and then when we decided to rent, that was slightly easier, because nowadays you don't have to do that. You know, you can have virtual tours. You can come over and arrange with a good estate agent who'll speak English, because in those days there were no English-speaking estate agents. Our estate agent, this is quite funny, he was a retired gentleman of about 75, and when we got into his car we had to move his dog and his gun. And I'd never seen a gun before. And his wife used to vouvoier him. So in France, tu is very familiar, and vous is for somebody important. So his wife used to call him vous, which was just amazing. It's really difficult to decide where you want to live. That is, you know, France is all gorgeous everywhere. It's just lovely. A lot will depend on your budget, and so you've got to have a realistic budget. You know, it's like chicken and egg. We hadn't sold our house, so do we sell the house and then go over and pray that we'll find somewhere, or we might find ourselves homeless, or do we find somewhere but then we're not able to buy it? You know, it's really, really difficult. Ultimately for us, renting was the only way, because all the properties we liked had already sold 3 months previously. But it still took us, we had a deadline, and it still took us quite a few months. The buying process was longer. France was a bit slower then, I think. And I was lucky in that I spoke French. But nowadays, really, you are 100 steps ahead. You know, you can find your property online, you can look in the area, you can look at the area, you can talk to other people, you can decide where you want to be. But don't be too fixed, because actually you might see a property in another area and think, well, should I look at that, should I not? Just be open to everything, really. And your anxieties, everyone has the same anxieties, and we're all still here. So don't worry too much. Honestly, just go for it. Well, the commuting was fun at the beginning because I could go shopping, which, you know, there aren't many shops here in rural France, and I got to see my family, my mum. But actually, then I was an actress, and Equity went on strike, and I had to stay at home for 3 months here in France, and I just thought, you know, I don't want to go back. And everyone was shocked because I was earning a really good living. I was very well known in what I did. But I just thought, I want to stay here. You know, what's not to love about it? In the beginning, I've always been passionate about dogs. So I used to show and breed Yorkies and then Chinese Cresteds, and I would show them in America, all over Europe. I would travel to Montenegro, Serbia, you name it. I've been there, which is great. When you're on mainland Europe, you just you get in the car and off you go. So for a while, my husband then did training, and he ran his own swimming pool company, so I didn't have to work, which was great. And then I got headhunted by an estate agency, and it was really, really fascinating, and I thought I could do this. I wasn't happy with the agency, so I let that go, and then by complete sheer coincidence, I answered an advert for a child's car seat on an English-speaking group, and it was the now director of finance of Beaux Villages, Tim Williams, who'd been my neighbour, and we got chatting, and kind of very long story short, here I am. I became an agent. I had no idea about being an agent, but I thought, well, I was an actress, I'll act it. And I acted it, and I became the top agent. I mean, when they told me that, I was like, what? Are you sure? And my office was the top office, and then they put me into management, and I was very flattered. You know, I didn't know what a KPI was. I had no idea what a KPI was, but I learned. It was another role, and I had the best time because I was able to help other agents. They gave me a car. I drove around France. I mean, it's gorgeous, all of it. And then came lockdown. And by then I was head of sales for all of our agents and agencies. And after lockdown, it made me think, really. I did a lot of coaching, and I thought I want to actually give 50% of my time to coaching, which I love doing, because it's helping other people fly, you know, do well. But I also couldn't give up being an estate agent. So I said, put my hand up, could I come back as, I took my retirement and then said, can I come back as an agent? Just, you know, an independent agent. And I completely love my job. I mean, every day I get up and I think, I'm so lucky to do this. It's hard. You know, we're not paid. And a lot of people buy elsewhere, but that's part of the job. But I make so many friends, and my buyers and my sellers become friends, and my colleagues are great. And, you know, Beaux Villages is a great agency to work for and to work with if you're a buyer or a seller. I really love it. I'd recommend it to anyone. If you want to be an estate agent, come and join us.